Hello, and welcome back to the Unmasking Motherhood podcast. I am so excited to be here today with a lovely human that I have not yet had the privilege of meeting in person, but that's the cool gift of online, having a love-hate relationship sometimes with social media. One of the many loves is finding special humans and connecting with like-minded souls. And Pearl and I connected that way a year or so ago, and it's when you had actually messaged. We had messaged back and forth, and part of your story came out, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I just knew when you shared what you did that I would love to have you on. So it's really special to me that even though we've never met in person or like hung out or know each other well, that we're doing this, and that you would say yes. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. I'm grateful to be here.
Would you mind telling us like a little bit about you? Give us a short introduction, whatever you feel led to share.
I've lived in Vegas most of my life, and I am a transformational coach, a sculpture artist, and a mother of an 8-year-old, which we're going to get into that whole story.
Oh, yeah.
I got into personal development out of college. I went to Purdue University, and my bestie was actually from Missouri, and I visited her once there. So, yeah, it's a great
Cool.
place. Nice and green.
Very.
Mm-hmm.
Not as brown as the desert.
Yeah, a lot more mesquites.
Yeah, not looking forward to that part of the summer. They're coming for me. Yeah. Awesome. I didn't realize you were a coach. That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay.
Part of the journey. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else you want to add before I pop in?
Oh gosh, I mean, there's a lot of avenues I could go down, and so I'm just gonna take your lead and see what is best to come through.
Beautiful. Okay. Let's jump into some fun questions then, and then we'll go into your mothering journey next. Okay. Oh, this is a fun one. Who is your mom crush? That one mom you look up to or would love to swap lives with for a day. Is there anyone that you know or that you have seen in a movie or on social media that you're like, this is a mom crush of mine. I would love to swap lives with her for a day. Like I said, so random.
Okay. Well, that's funny because like the first flash that I had was Elizabeth April, which is how I found you anyway, just because she's an epic human.
She is.
And then as I was thinking about it more, Sarah Blakely is probably who I'd want to swap lives with. She's the founder of Spanx. And her love story and all of her journey to motherhood and having 4 kids now. And they just have so much fun and have such amazing big lives and have positive impact. And all her kids are so empowered and take risks. And yeah, so I think that would be an interesting one to get some nuggets from.
Yes. Yeah. I've heard her story or her speak on a podcast, and I was like, what a rad human. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth April or Sarah Blakely.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, what's okay, second, 2 out of 3. What's your secret mom hack that no one told you about, but you wish you would have known about earlier? What's your secret mom hack that no one told you about, but you wish you would have known earlier?
The one that I didn't know about earlier, and also the one that first came to mind, was just positive languaging. And I think there's like some kind of statistic that we hear no 10,000 times, some number for that's important. And I was just like, I don't want that to be a foundational thing. So I really got into the Montessori method to make learning fun and raise independent kids. And so for an example, like, we don't want our kids touching the remote, for example. Most people say, stop touching the remote. And so, but what I was retraining myself was hands off. because it's the actual thing that we want them to do, not the opposite of what we don't want, because we don't really process double negatives. So another example is like when I say don't think about the blue tree, your mind automatically thinks about a blue tree. So really like retraining my language to verbalize exactly what I'm actually wanting to give the message.
Yes. Yeah. I fell in love with the Montessori method early on, by the way. And I kind of nerd out about the different ways we can introduce language with our kids, but it requires so much, at least on my part, conscious effort, because it was different than when I'm around or grew up around. But I think it's so cool to like learn those little tips and tricks that especially feel more aligned, right? To speak to our children.
Yeah. So another thing I practice is saying yes and. Like if he asks to watch his iPad, for example, and it's not right now, like I don't say no, not right now. I say yes, as soon as you're done doing this thing, go for it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's going to be a good turnout. Right? We're just hoping for the best on this motherhood journey.
Yeah, right. It's all an experiment, right? Yep, absolutely. Okay. What was the last one I was going to see? Oh, so describe if you could like speak about what do you call it? A mom superpower that you have? What would it be? Describe a superpower that you felt like has come out of you as a result of motherhood.
Motherhood superpower. I feel like the biggest gift as a mother that I could give to my son, and I don't know if that's answering your question, but it's coming up some.
Yeah, share away.
Is just encouraging him to be the youiest him that he could be. Like whatever that means, like his style, just really cultivating and nurturing him and his paths and his interests, and not projecting my own things, but offering what I know to see if it can help him on his unique journey. I feel like that's the biggest gift. The biggest superpower. I'm not associated to that right now. Gosh. Biggest superpower. Go ahead.
Keep on.
Oh, biggest superpower as a mother, like specific to being a mom superpower. What's yours?
Yeah. Like, this ability to like make them giggle by just being so silly in a moment. Like with my toddler, like if she's in a fussy phase, like I've just learned how to be so goofy. I'm just throwing that out there. But I feel like to like kind of break up a sour mood if I need to, right? That ability to just be goofy. The thing that you shared though, I'm like, and if you don't resonate with motherhood superpower, like leave that. But I feel like that is special and really a beautiful thing to share. Letting your child be the youiest. Did you say that right? The youiest version of them.
Yeah, like the youiest you. It's a Dr. Seuss thing, but yeah, the youiest you. Yeah, because then we're not then he doesn't have to unlearn trying to be somebody else later, which a lot of us end up going through.
Yes. That's pretty epic, in my opinion. I mean, that's kind of like a super hack. I don't know what to even call that. But I'm like, that's just a sacred gift that you're giving them. Yeah.
Thank you. If he can love himself through, then that's the best. Because I feel like learning to love yourself for who you are is, there's layers to it. It's certainly something I've been sorting through on my journey.
Oh yeah. I got this tattoo in college. It says love yourself.
Perfect. Yeah.
And I look at it, I'm like, not that is there ever an arriving of complete acceptance? I mean, I hope, but it's there. It's always a reminder. And when I do remember to like look at it, even though it's ironically on my body, I'm like, oh, I could use that reminder this week, like still, even though it's tattooed on me. So it's a journey. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. That was fun to hear your responses, your mom crushes. So as listeners, as you all know, with this podcast, one of the things I love is just pulling back a mask and getting to hear another person's story as a connection point. Storytelling is a beautiful way to feel less alone, to learn and to grow. It's how, ancient civilizations would pass on knowledge is through story. And it's how I feel like I learn best. And a lot of people can claim that too. You learn best through storytelling. And so that's a huge part of this podcast. And right now, I would love to hear more about Pearl's story through motherhood and have it be shared with you, which is, again, a gift to be able to hear and witness another human story. So with that being said, if we were to go back in time to like you before being a mom, so you've been a mom for 8 years, was there ever a moment in time where you knew you wanted to be a mom, or and this kind of falls into like, take us up to before pregnancy and then to pregnancy. Was that a surprise? I always like to hear those stories. Was this planned? Yeah. Did you want to be a mom? What were your thoughts early on and then leading up to pregnancy?
I definitely knew I wanted to be a mom at some point, being little, playing with dolls. Like I loved having the kids, or if I was playing life, I'd stack the cars and get 2 cars because I had so many kids. So I'd have 2 cars going on the life board. So definitely wanted kids, but never really like knew when. I kind of thought like, oh, maybe 28 will be nice, because I'll get to have my experience of being 20 and then, do that. So that was kind of how I thought it would be ideal to go down. And yeah, I mean, I went to college, and it's interesting because, I've told this story so many times, but I'm in such a different place now. So I'm curious to see how it comes out because I've done so much release work. And as I was reflecting on the journey, coming into this podcast, I recognized that, and that for people that are listening, so we have our conscious mind and our unconscious mind. So our conscious mind is the one that's like actively thinking in the present moment, and our unconscious mind is like the archive of everything we've ever learned or experienced, and it's like, our memories and stuff. And so I apparently had this unconscious program running where, I was chasing freedom. And I didn't really realize that I had a belief unconsciously that I wasn't free. So, from college, like I started off wanting to be an orthodontist, and then realized eventually I'd have my own practice, which would anchor me down. I'd be stuck in one place. So I stopped doing that, switched to studying environmental science. Maybe financially it would have been better to drop out at that point, but I stuck with it. Left college, like refused to apply for jobs and, send a resume. I didn't want to be judged by a black and white sheet of paper. And I had this thought that, getting a job would, be a 9-to-5 prison, right? So once I got to 25, that's when I got pregnant. And so obviously having that unconscious thing running, like pregnancy was the ultimate ball and chain. Like, no way, was trying like a serial failed entrepreneur trying to start businesses, but I couldn't do it because if I couldn't see myself doing it for life, then that means I wouldn't be free because I wouldn't be enjoying it or something. So it's just this weird, couldn't commit to anything.
Yeah.
And so, and by the way, if I tend to like get into details and stuff, and if you feel like maybe we could, zoom out and just so that it's more relevant to the audience, yay! Then please feel free to like interject and zoom out. Okay. Anyway, so I was working with somebody after getting out of a toxic relationship and like not with that friend group at all anymore. And so this person I didn't even know, my son's father, didn't know him really much. We dated for like a month and a half and then decided like, let's just be friends. So we had the just be friends talk. And then I found out I was pregnant a month after that.
Oh,
let me get some water.
Yeah. I'm just like putting myself in your shoes for a moment. Like, all right, moving on, done with this relationship, pregnant.
Yeah. And I was so transient
Shocked.
at that point. Like I still had all my stuff at my dad's house where I grew up. I was like kind of living with the toxic ex before then. And then, you know, when me and my son's father hooked up, I just kind of started staying there. So I was like, had a mobile closet in my car. It was like, just to kind of paint the picture of where I was at, like party girl pearl days kind of thing. You know, I was like producing underground raves and stuff like that.
Oh,
so
okay. Whole different life that I'll have to like hear about from you another day.
Right. Totally.
Yeah. So what was your initial thought? Were you like, yes, there's no question in my mind, I want to have this baby? Did you want to tell him? Like, what happened next?
I was in complete denial. I had skipped 2 periods and thought something was wrong with my body. So I made an appointment with my gyno to get some blood work done. And, you know, she comes back in the room, puts her hand on my shoulder and says, "You have a baby growing in your uterus." Oh. And I lost, like, it just felt the tingles, complete shock. Everything got quiet. I could see her lips moving, couldn't hear what she was saying. And I was just freaking out. And the one thing that came through was, "You don't need to make any decisions right now." But I'm like, yeah, but I got to make a decision at some point. Like, oh my gosh. I asked for the phone number to make an abortion. Like, how do I get an abortion? Made the very next appointment, which was 9 a.m. the next morning. Found out that I was 9 weeks and 4 days. And apparently 9 weeks is the cutoff to be able to take the pill. So they're like, we need to do we need to do it surgically. And so we paid for it. It was like over $500. I had the gown on. I was ready to get this thing sucked out. And they tell me like, "Oh, you need to have a cervix softening. And so you have to come back. The next appointment we have is in 3 days." So
why? What is that? It just wasn't working? You couldn't get in there? Like,
I guess, I don't know. Like, maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And was anyone with you or were you by yourself?
So my son's father was with me, and I told my dad that I was doing it, and he showed up, and he was in the parking lot talking to him like, "I wonder who this schmuck is." Didn't know it was him yet. So that was kind of funny.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So you had to go back a different day because you
had to go back a different day, which gave me time to process and really consider what was the best thing to do. And at that point in time, I wasn't intuitive. I was really reliant on analytical thinking, and I made a list of pros and cons. Yeah. And ultimately landed on more pros than cons for keeping him. And I called and I said, "I'd like to reschedule my appointment indefinitely." Because I kept having one foot in and one foot out, like the whole pregnancy. I battled with whether or not to keep the baby or not. And it was such a struggle. And I actually like busted out my pregnancy journal and was kind of looking through it. And there was so much depression and anger that I was feeling. I was pregnant, and, you know, I was even bulimic through my pregnancy too. I've struggled with bulimia for 15 years up until like 4 years ago. So yeah. It was it was a battle of like choosing to keep him or not. And up until like the last day, I think it's like 6 months or something is the last day you can get an abortion, which is really far along.
Oh my goodness.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember what it was, but
I don't know what it is now, but I've heard some states are pretty they allow it much later.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
you
so
were
I
iffy
waited
the
till
whole
the
time.
waited till the last day that I could legally get the abortion before I asked for the refund. So just kind of shows like how unsure I was.
Yeah.
And really what was stopping me was because I didn't want to have a baby with someone I wasn't in love with, and I just got out of this toxic relationship, not with any of the friends group. I felt like I got knocked up and
Right.
about to go do this thing, like don't even really want to be a mom right now. And so yeah, where do you want to
You
take it next?
you ultimately decided, okay, we're going to do this.
We
And
decided to co-parent. We
oh,
decided we
nice.
were going to
Yeah.
co-parent. And he was just such an incredible pregnancy partner. I mean, and I was mad and I was projecting anger. I wasn't aware of my emotions, or I didn't have all these tools I have now. And if he looked in my direction when he was eating, I would get grossed out. So like sometimes I would ask him to like eat on the other side of the room. But you know what? He would still massage me like for 2 hours. Like we'd start watching a movie, I'd fall asleep, the next movie was on and he was still massaging me. Like he was just such an incredible partner, which was part of the pro. Like I thought it was
Yeah.
going to be, I thought he was going to be such a great father. And so that was a huge reason. And now he's actually not even in the picture. But, I'm grateful that it was part of what helped me decide to keep my son ultimately.
Yeah. What was the day you met him? What was that like, the day you met your son?
I really wanted to have a vaginal birth, ended up having a C-section. And that was one of the most terrifying and liberating experiences of my life, because I remember, he turned over, which was, the whole sunny side up thing. And so I knew that was call a doctor. Okay. And I guess I got stuck at 7 centimeters dilated, but I'm like, that's just a statistic. Even though I've been there for an hour, like we can ride this through. But once he turned over, I'm like, okay, fine, call a doctor. And so, I had the epidural and that's great. But once they gave me, I think it was morphine, I like turned into a sandbag with a head. And so I couldn't move anything and it was freaking me out. And, but I could talk and stuff. And so here I am hearing my sister in the background, calling my mom and dad, telling them exactly what I didn't want to have happen, which is the C-section. And my partner was like, how can I help? I'm like, there's not really anything you can fucking do right now, but thank you. And just hold my hand.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The freak out of that whole moment.
Held his hand, closed my eyes. And I just started thinking about things that I enjoy, like trees, furniture. And I got to this point of like, oh, okay, like I feel good. And I realized that I got myself out of that anxiety because I was having a panic attack. And I've never had a panic attack before. And so that's actually an anchoring moment for me whenever I'm, if I'm having a challenging situation, that's like shown up is like, no, you can get through this. Like you got this. So, yeah, when he got, to answer your question, after they pulled him out, and I'm like laying on the bed, like my arms were shaking for some reason because I was not cold, but whatever. And he put it next to me and I saw him and I was like, wow. Because I never talked to him when he was in my belly. I just felt so disconnected from the pregnancy the whole time. And really up until he was 2.5, I rejected being a mom. And so it wasn't until I took an emotional intelligence training where I finally admitted out loud, I don't want to be a fucking mom. I think I even screamed it.
Yeah.
And that
you just
moment
fully owned that. Sorry to interrupt you.
I fucking owned it. And the irony of owning that is what helped it all diffuse. I wish I knew that. And that my son didn't have to go 2.5 years experiencing rejection energy from me. Because, on the surface, of course, I was like loving, and there's always love underneath there. But you can't you can't hide the energy that's happening underneath, right?
Especially with someone so in tune with you, literally as your child, like they feel everything.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
can you, if you're open to sharing, or if you have any
Hmm.
things that, no pressure if you can't think in the moment or don't
Hmm.
feel comfortable sharing, but like give us an idea of what that looked like, that rejection, like how it played out a little bit. An
Hmm.
example of how looking back that you were in rejection energy.
Yeah. So I knew there were times where like I remember saying there's this story, this narrative that I was running that like I want to play with him.
I want to want.
I want to play with him. I want to do activities with him. Like putting stuff together, like crafts, like beyond the what you were supposed to do stuff.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
I always saw myself being a mom that did the crafts and the this and the that and all these things, and I just wasn't that. And I wanted to be different so bad. I wanted to want to be a mom.
Yeah.
And so um
That's
yeah.
a way it showed up though. Like there was almost
Mhm.
this like resistance to stepping into those desires or those parts of yourself that you hoped you'd be, but there was like a block there. Like you
Mhm.
weren't following through with the action.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a block there. Um and like if I did an activity it just kind of felt hollow, or I'd just be irritable and like annoyed, and that's not
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So at 2.5 emotional intelligence course,
Hmm.
was this like an online thing or were you in like seminar with people and you're like, I don't want to be a fucking mom?
Great question. So this was actually, it happened in an advanced course. The first one was like a in-person immersion, like 4 days of being with a group of people, kind of like discovering what it is that's going on in our lives. And then you go through the breakthrough, and then there was 100 days of leadership. So this other one was called Journey Within, and it was a small group, and it was um, in person for like the first weekend, but then the whole 6 months of it was online. And so we have our small group where we really took turns, like just, it was a safe space to just
Yep.
share who and discover who we are. So like getting to say the things that we think about, but don't actually say out loud and not be judged for it. And one of the tools I learned in there, which I think is such an incredible tool for communication and especially in relationship, we learned active listening and
Mm.
also mirroring. So after
Mm.
someone would share what they shared, we would take turns mirroring back what we heard them say in a neutral way. So without like putting our own opinions on it, we repeated
Yep.
back what we heard them say, which was incredible insight for us of like, okay, that's not what I meant at all. And so we really like, it was an opportunity to
Oh,
learn, like, am I
yeah.
really coming across the way that I intend to? And how are people perceiving me?
What a great skill. I feel like everyone
Mm-hmm.
needs that. Like
Mm-hmm.
early on, the better too. Like how
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Yeah.
Wow. So is it within that safe context, that community of people that you'd been kind of journeying with,
Mm-hmm.
or at least this program, that one day it just came out and up, like
Mm-hmm.
that truth?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was like right before COVID happened.
Oh.
Yeah. Because I was in Miami with my partner, new partner at the time, and we're still together. Been 5 years now.
Mm.
And like I was so disconnected from being a mom that when it
Yeah.
was time to go home and like all the airports were shutting down, I even considered just like being separate.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
that makes me sad to think about that
Mhm.
now, that I was like willing to debate that, but
Wow.
it's where I was at.
And were you doing, I appreciate you sharing the truth too. It's like
Hmm.
I think we need more spaces for people to share the truth and are
Hmm.
able to talk about it and hear other people share theirs. It
Hmm.
sparks other people being able to name theirs. So that's what I love about this podcast, and I'm grateful for you doing right now, even though I know it can be vulnerable to share this stuff. Were
There's
you?
magic in letting your
Yeah.
thoughts breathe, like obviously that big example of admitting I don't want to be a fucking mom and then it diffusing from there. But
Yeah.
if there's just to the listeners, if there's something that you notice, it's a thought that you keep going in a merry-go-round, it probably wants to be addressed. And what happens if I just write it down? What happens if I just say it out loud to someone that won't judge me? And then it gets to move, like it stops being stagnant. And yeah, so it's been
Yes.
great.
Those like cheesy slogans are great, like, but great for a reason. They're true for a reason. What we resist persists.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, depression is what you depress, like the stuff that you just push down and shove away and won't say. Um, that's such a practical yet simple thing that anyone can do that's listening. Like we all probably have something present or old that's coming up that we're, for whatever reason, judging or unwilling to look at for like some sort of reason. And so I just invite the listener, as you're listening to the story, to like maybe pause for a moment and take note, or if this would be helpful to you, if you're intrigued by this idea, to maybe have 30 minutes after this call or some point this week where you put on some light music, have a blanket on, like create a safe space for you to like write something down, or call a person that you love and trust to share. Um, I think a more liberated world starts with telling the truth
Mm-hmm.
in a safe space. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Key
Oh yeah.
note there. Can't tell everyone.
Right. And also like noticing what the intention is behind, like when we tell the truth. Um, is it going to like hurt, or are we doing it from a place of like responsibility so that we're not
Mm.
projecting pain onto somebody else? And that's one of the gifts I learned in my relationship. And we even named that side of me Dardia because she throws darts. Um,
Oh.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So now, she doesn't come out as much because I've acknowledged what triggers her to come out anyway. And so, how that looks in relationship is if I'm noticing that I'm judging my partner, it used to come out as like passive aggressive darts and things like that. But now, well, the training wheels that got me out of it was, okay, I'm experiencing judgment right now, and I know it's my own stuff. Is it okay if I just share what's coming up for me right now without you taking it personally? Right? Because that helps him disarms my partner so that he doesn't feel like he's being attacked. And it creates a space of like, hey, I'm having these judgments. I don't want to have them anymore. And I'd like to grow from it, and just kind of creates that open space. And we do that, with my son as well, so that he can get used to expressing what's, coming up for him.
Oh, that's amazing. The journey of parenting is so much. I'm learning like we must go first. Like, of course, we want our children to be able to have communication skills. I'm thinking of like nonviolent communication. I'm pretty sure that's the name of a book that I've read. If not, that's the approach that they speak to in it. And even in Montessori education, there's like conflict resolution that they teach to the children. That's like mind blowing. I'm like, why are we not teaching this early on to everyone? But at the same time, there's this like disconnect of within the household, we want our children to do it, but we as the parent aren't practicing those skills or even know them. So yeah, go you. And for taking that into your own account, and even naming those parts can like de-shame them, like give them less power. Like, oh, it's that I see you coming up. Dardia, is that what you called her? Did I
Yeah,
say it right?
Dardia. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it just brings like a little bit of lightness to it too. Like it's just a
Mm-hmm.
part of you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so cool. Thanks for sharing that part.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so after you named that truth, I would be curious to hear the effects of it. Like, was there an initial, and it was COVID and all, all that stuff coming to the surface at that time, some crazy times in our world.
Mm-hmm.
What was those first few weeks, first few months like? Did you feel a difference in your energy towards him? Did you see a difference in your relationship? Like, take us back there.
I Man, I mean, because it was overlaid with, COVID, it was such a shift in life that it was a slowdown, and it was like sprouts of love were coming up, and just acceptance,
Mm.
and the pressure of figuring things the fuck out, like um settled. And I
Right.
just remember, so like I used to how Darty I used to project on my son. His name is Damien, by the way, with an N in the middle. He would, when he would want to be close to me, but I wanted space, like I just would like shake him off and like shout like, "Get off!" Oh gosh, I hate that I did that, but
Oh, yeah.
I did that,
Yeah.
and I stopped doing that after I had admitted the whole thing
Mm.
and like came home. So that was one of the big things that I noticed that started changing, was my reactivity to him.
Mm.
Mhm.
And that was not forced on you. You were like, I need to stop doing that. It just started to happen
It was
organically.
natural, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because I wasn't in such resistance anymore.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's a major shift.
It stopped persisting. What I wasn't
You weren't
resisting.
resisting. I I just want to name for a minute because this conversation is just bringing up a lot in my own experience as a mother and with mothers that I know. And so there's this element I just want to speak to, that there's no such thing as a perfect human, right? That's why I have this whole group for moms and now in St. Louis, the Imperfect Moms Club. Like, we need more spaces where we don't have to have it all together, where it's okay to show up in our mess. And within motherhood, we are always on this evolving path, but we can look back and realize, oh my gosh, like the things that we used to do within parenting, there's some practices that even current day, like if I have a low energy moment, I slip up and I just feel so much guilt about, and or past practices as I learning and growing and working on my own nervous system as a mom. And it's easy to fall into if you're a perfectionist, or if you have high expectations for yourself, or you really want to do mothering well, to like shame, blame, and guilt yourself for your past actions. And while I think it's important, and I'm not even saying you're doing this, I just wanted to speak to this for a minute. While I think it's so important to assess our behavior and look at it maturely, and to figure out, go to the root and excavate and figure out what's going on so that we can become a healthier parent that creates healthier children in the world. I just want to envelop that whole experience. If you're realizing there's some parts of you that maybe you can relate to with Pearl's story, or that you're just, that there's some practices or behaviors in parenting that you want to change, that you feel guilty about, to wrap yourself in like this blanket of self-compassion. What if there was a very real reason you were doing the things you were doing? And again, I'm not saying this is a permission slip to do harmful behaviors to our children. It's more of if we come from a place of loving acceptance and like radical kindness towards ourselves, like that's the energy that can transmute and change behaviors. What do you think about that? Do you have a different opinion? I'm open to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the important thing is our children seeing how we process when that stuff happens. So, acknowledging that
Yeah.
we're triggered in the first place, and apologizing, but not, we say, please forgive me. I was triggered, and what I noticed was coming up for me. And so they can see how you're like taking it back to this thing, because it's never about them. They've
Yes.
reminded us of something that's unresolved inside. And so, reminding them not to take it personally, like, I'm not mad at you, I'm mad at this thing that happened that reminded me, trying to think of an example.
Yeah.
Like if something breaks, right? and get triggered, like, oh. And so my partner, he used to get yelled at when something would break. And so when it happened with my son, he acknowledged that he got triggered when he was younger. His dad used to get mad at him, and so I recognized that that was a learned behavior I don't want to continue. And so, thank you for helping me realize
Mm.
this so that we can move on from that. And it's okay, things break, and we clean it up together and it's all good. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of how we do.
Yes. Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that the term that you're using with your child of like what was coming up for me was, and just
Mhm.
modeling that introspection, that humility. We're a big repair family.
Mhm.
And I mean, I feel like I have a 6 and a 2-year-old. I feel like my 6-year-old could understand the term of like what was coming up with me. Like to just level, I like that. It's kind of a mature conversation, but it takes the ownership back on you because kids inherently think everything's their fault. They're inherently
Mhm.
selfish at this age, right? The world revolves around them. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just how they are at this age. They're completely dependent on us. I forget what age that actually shifts. Is it 7? I don't know. Maybe older, where they start to like see outside themselves, but they'll take everything personally
Mhm.
up until that point. And so that's such a gift as parents to do, especially for our little ones, to show them it's not on them. Like your divorce or your bad day, it's not your child's fault. That stuff
Mhm. Mhm.
too.
Yeah. Yeah, acknowledging it and owning it. And so now if like my partner is like upset about something or whatever, my son will be like, "Oh, he's triggered, huh?" And
That's
so it's just
what
not a big
8-year-old.
deal.
I
Not a
love
big
that.
deal.
He's gonna be like so much more evolved than we were at that point. I'm like, I never talked like that. That's so
Mhm.
cool though. Like I hope that there's like a generation of that, like our kids' generation is a little more like, I don't know if there's anything wrong with us, but I don't know. That's awesome.
Yeah,
It
and
just
like it even shows up in his classroom, right? So there's this kid that my son like thinks is really annoying, and he's kind of a little bit of a bully, and he'll bring it up and be like, who knows what's going on at home, right? Like
Yep.
maybe their parents don't know about how to address their triggers. And so, how can we support that friend that is maybe projecting their own anger and they don't know where it's coming from?
That's beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah. It's just a more generous way to it's like what I see is it's given him a more generous way to view others because he's doing it. It's modeled by you. He's able to then practice it with himself and not
Mm.
demonize emotions. Sometimes we pathologize our blow ups or our triggers, but it's like, no, this is what's coming up. We're just naming it in a free, safe space. And then in turn, we can like um, more easily see and welcome that in other people or have less judgment over them. It's more
Yeah.
loving.
hmm
Hmm. So what's parenting like present day? Like, so that was like 2.5. If you want to like, is there anything
mm
from now into then into now that you're like, you want to talk to, what's the journey been like?
Um, so like all this triggerina talk has been more present, like maybe the last year or so.
Okay.
Um, um, but since the 2.5 until till now has really just been like working on myself and dealing with my own stuff and resolving traumas, like learning
Mm.
release tools. So like earlier I kind of started mentioning that there was this unconscious program that was running. I actually figured out that I had, well, there was two different beliefs that were crippling me into so many different areas of my life, including parenting, like career, and even just creating as an artist. I like shrank myself and lost so
Mm.
much momentum. Um, and I call it shrinking thinking. But that was because I had this belief or this pattern that I would choose to avoid uncomfortable things. like I was seeking comfort. So I'm like, oh, if that's uncomfortable, or if it's not aligned, like sometimes that could be a spiritual bypass, that I would like not choose to do it. And so we released that. And then that created space to find this other belief that was leading to like failure, which was I'm not free and it makes me miserable. And
Oh, the
when I
freedom.
found, yeah, when I found that pesky little belief in there, it was so relieving, and it made so much sense. It tied to so many things. And we released that. It's actually about 2 weeks ago that it happened. So it's pretty fresh.
Wow.
And like the momentum that I've been having since then has been wild. Like I'm creating again, I'm building my website finally, because all my clients have been word of mouth, which is great. But I'm, ready to create my stage in the shimmer of the internet. And yeah, so I think it's just like find tools that work for you. There's so many incredible tools out there. There's not one that's better than all of them. It's just finding, what works for you. And so my partner and I are both master practitioners, and luckily we can, support each other when stuff comes up. So finding those tools, doing the work on yourself, because when I like as an energetic force field, once I do release work, my external environment starts to reflect the changes I've done internally. And it seems almost miraculous, or like, wow, coincidences and synchronicities. Like, I did a 3-day water fast, and I also paired it with this Dr. Joe Dispenza exercise, where for 3 days, 3 times a day, in the morning, afternoon, at night, you put your hand on your heart, and you start off in the morning before you even open your eyes. Once you realize you're awake, you start saying, "Today is the day I break through to a new destiny." And you actually like say it out loud. It's not enough to just think of it in your head. You actually have to say it. It could be a whisper. Like you start speaking the talk that you want to have with yourself. So if you have a lot of negative self-talk, what's the opposite of that, right? Like, I am courageous. I choose to create my desires. I choose to be on social media, And so just really saying those things. And then when it came up for me the other day, like I had pep talk with myself and was able to tap back in. So yeah, just doing the work, and then it reflects outwardly.
Incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Incredible.
the reason why I said that was because like I choose to create. I choose to create, I choose to create, and I choose to connect with people. And I got so many text messages from people I haven't talked to that I
Oh,
think of in creative ways the next couple of days. And
that's
so
wild.
yeah, it's really fascinating seeing how, the universe or source responds when we're being active and changing our patterns.
Mm, what an encouraging story. I feel like we need more like testimonies of people's experiences that to
Mhm.
believe that it is possible for us too. And
Mhm.
yeah, awesome. I'm just cheering you on over here.
Thanks. I hope I'm,
Yeah.
before we turn into this, I'm like, what can I share, like, add the most value and just be the most authentic and serve the audience. So
Yeah. Yeah.
hopefully.
I love where it's gone. I have um and I know that these topics are going to really be so valuable to the women that listen. The the last two questions I have for you are related to motherhood specifically.
Mhm.
Um, one of them, you can take this wherever you feel led. It can be light, it can be deep. Here it goes. If we really knew you, what would we know about your motherhood journey that you haven't yet shared? If we really knew you, what would we know about your motherhood journey?
Um, I've always had this fantasy of creating a tree bed like just a super decked out room, you know, like a tree house, but in a room, and just imagination. And I haven't yet done that. And that's something like I hope. I used to think like, oh, I hope I don't miss it or live with regret that I never actually did that. But now we've actually started talking about doing it together. Because now he, you know, is at an age where we can actually do it together. So maybe that's even better than
Oh,
what it would have been before.
like are you talking about like a treehouse and a bed built
Yeah.
in?
Yeah.
Ooh,
Like kind
magical.
of bringing my sculpture artist side, and like, I like weird furniture. And so like building them together so that he gets to experience it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You have, if that ends up when that comes to fruition, I got to see pictures.
Yeah. Yeah. That's going to be a fun
Mm.
one.
And incorporating that with your son, that'd be really cool.
Well, now that I actually said it out loud and it's not just like stirring around in
Yep.
there, it has more power.
Yes. Ooh, so cool.
So thank you for
Um,
that.
yeah, yeah, you're welcome. Gets it, moving and active again.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think such a fascinating part of the human experience is like seeing and living our creative abilities. And you don't have to, so many people think that they have to be a professional artist or I'm not artistic. And I was like, we all are artists in some way. And what
Hmm.
is it to be human, but to be, I'm not saying it the way I want to, but just to be tapped into our creative energy. And it can look so different for every single person, but it in my experience really connects you when you tap into that, whether it's like art therapy or just movement or creating for the sake of creating. It can tap you into your humanity in a way that not many things can. So it was a whole side trail, and I'm like, yes, anytime that you're like there's a vision in your head, you're creative and you're bringing that to life, like awesome, that's dope.
Yeah, it's fun.
Okay, so and my last question for you, like if you could just be, sitting on a stage, like really naturally just talking to other moms and sharing a message of like, I wish you knew this. I wish that you could this. Like, what would you want to tell them based on your own experience or where you are today? What comes up?
Oh, yeah. So we're all like, as parents, we all know we're going to go through the potty training phase, right? We all know that that's going to be a thing. What I wish that was more talked about, that I had insight on, was the identity that shift that happens specifically with your first child, like going from not being a mom to being a mom.
Oh,
I
yeah.
held on to who I was so tight that it like stopped me from growing into who I was becoming, and it made me stagnant and like regretful. I used to say that I sacrificed who I was to have this child.
Hmm.
And it, it created so much comparison, and like, seeing my friends on social media traveling the world and feeling like the pain of the comparison stuff. And I just wish that I knew that the identity shift was a thing, and that I wasn't
Right.
going to be the same person anymore. And so, knowing what I know now and all the tools that I have now, if I could go back, I would make a ceremony out of it, like honoring the version of who I was. And, what do I love about that version? What are the things that I would like to work on from, that version? What do I want to carry through? What am I ready to leave behind? What am I not ready to leave behind, but maybe can tuck it away and, let it come back around if it's still meant for me? Because, when the babies are little, it's like, especially if you're breastfeeding, you go from being a factory to being a warehouse. And then eventually getting your body back, which is a total story for another time. But yeah, so definitely the identity shift, and like, it's okay. It's going to be okay. And just even knowing that was coming, that whole initiation into motherhood, it's a freaking portal. So it would have been great to just have that be acknowledged. Because I was holding on tight and it wasn't helping.
When did you develop that philosophy that you have now? Was it right after that 2.5-year mark where you like, or was this a newer development where you're like, wow, I've seen this and I wish, I could have had that.
Yeah, that was when I was doing the personal growth and development, and like, using different release work techniques that I had learned. I realized that I sacrificed who I was. Someone brought that to light for me, a colleague. And once I released that, things shifted. Yay. That's, that's kind of how it goes. And
name of the game
going until the end, and maybe still keep going. That was in 2019, 2020. No. That was 2021. So my son was 5 years old. So it was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
That I kind of realized that so it took me until he was 5 years old to let go of who I was trying to hold on to being.
It's that Made into Mother journey. Mm-hmm. Have you read that book, the Made into Mother book?
I haven't.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Oh, it's so cool. And she used to take the author, I don't know if she still does this anymore, but she would take women on journeys, like kind of like retreat vibes was my what I pulled from the book. But you can take yourself on your own. These visualizations of stepping into the maiden mother matriarch. And I feel like we've lost those ancient rites of passage that people used to honor in this Western society. And I'm like, that is definitely one that I vibe with you. I'm like, we're not honoring this huge transition enough. Mm-hmm. And what are the implications of it? And how can we, better love the moms and help them with this huge change? So the initiation piece, it's a huge one. Mm-hmm. Is there anything bigger than the portal of motherhood? I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Cause I used to constantly think on loop about like where I'd be and what I'd be doing if I didn't have my child. And, when that story's on loop, you don't have space to think about what you could be doing now. And like, what are the gifts because I chose?
Yeah. You miss out on all that's right in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it'd be nice to like get to that sooner. Not take 5 years.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you for the invitation, and you're an incredible host, and I love your questions and the way that you navigate, and it was very fun and inviting and warm and informative as well. Thank you.
Just such a relatable story that I know that I resonated with as a fellow mom, and I just really appreciate your realness and your spirit. And you're welcome. It was a joy doing this with you.
I do have a little note that I thought it would be good to share, kind of, going off of that identity shift piece. I think it would be a good fit if you're open to, I could share a resource.
Yeah, please do. Open to that.
So, we talked about release work a lot, right? That's how to deal with the stuff that's from our past. And then I think a great tool for dealing with like when stuff comes up in the moment is a Kabbalah. So it's basically, it's like a spiritual wisdom of how to navigate basically like our soul being human. So if that type of language resonates, you could look into Kabbalah. There's like Kabbalah 1 from the Kabbalah Center, and I can give you a link if you want to share. But
I'll share it in the podcast notes.
Yeah, it's a tool like tools of like, how do I deal with stuff when it's coming up in the moment, and how to learn the lessons faster. So that way you're being more proactive instead of reactive. And the course, David Guillaume is the teacher, and it's like a $50 donation suggestion or pay what you can. So it's very accessible, and it's been incredibly transformational and brought so much peace. So I definitely recommend that to all my clients and friends and loved ones. So I definitely wanted to share that. And then in terms of, release techniques, obviously I do that with people, and there's so many different types, but I can send some links for that too.
That would be wonderful. That's the next part I was going to ask you too, of if folks want to get in touch with you, do you have a way that they could? It's Instagram. I know you're working on a site.
Yeah. So I am on Instagram right now as Pearly May, which is PEARLYMAY. I do have a new name for the business, aspect for my services and offerings. I feel shy to announce it, so I'm not sure, because what if it changes?
No pressure.
But yeah. So, but you could just ask on Instagram, and I'd be delighted to, see if it's a fit to work together, or, refer to someone I think that would be the best fit, or maybe it's just offering a resource. And I just love to, meet people where they're at, and, offer support that I think would be the best fit, whether that's me or not.
Lovely. Well, I will definitely share more of your information below if anyone wants to connect with you online. And thank you for watching another episode. I hope that there was a nugget or many nuggets of wisdom and truth that you needed to hear in your own journey as a mother or pre-motherhood. Maybe you're considering being a mom, and Pearl's story spoke to you. That's my hope. That's my wish. And I also ask that you share this with a mom that you know and love, that you know needs to hear this. So please please share, please subscribe, and spread the word so more moms can hear stories and experience more liberation in their motherhood journey. Thank you so much.